Hello! So this video is the continuation of the previous video on the problem 22 of the Euler project that was getting a bit long. So if you haven't checked it out yet, I suggest that you would go there first. I'm waiting. Okay? Okay, so now we are going to see how we can continue this problem 22 by opening new files. So now the interesting stuff begins. So now we need to also open the file, so the p022 underscore names.txt, and do a few things with it. So it's a different kind of work. So we're going to call it test prepare file.py. Okay, def test file is prepared, or as you might also write it, test it prepares file. And now, so you've got different ways of doing it. Either you open it in your test file, depends on how you're going to work with your code later. I would preferably pass a file name rather than a file here in this case, because it's more user-friendly of just manipulating file names. But if you're taking your input from web session or something, sometimes it's more convenient to use file to open the files straight in your test, because you will not be provided with file names. Some contents in file-like objects in Python are not stored within real file system files. So here I'm going to use a file name, and the file name is p022 underscore names.txt. So, and I would have assert prepare file name. And then what kind of assertion should I have? So probably I could take the first and the second line and just check if they are if they are sorted already. But then in this case, this file is really big, so it might not be a good test file. So maybe I should just write my own. So I'm just going to steal 2 names or 3 names out of it. Okay. And I'm going to write my own short test file. So short test.txt. So here, what can I do with this? So I'm already looking that it's not sorted. So it's not completely sorted, but it's not completely unsorted either, which is good. It's randomly sorted. So I just need to make sure that if once I read this file, so prefer file name should return, and then I'm going to put it in sorted way. So Linda, and then Mary, and then Patricia. Yes, this is in order. Okay. And so of course it's no longer this one, it's going to be short test.txt. Sounds good. Let's run the tests. Oh, prepare file is not defined, of course. We haven't file prepare.py. So you see I'm inverting the terms of the name, so there is less confusion. So file prepare is the module, and prepare file is the function I want to write. Prepare file, given a file name, and then I don't know what to do with it yet, and I'm not going to be trapped like as usual. From file prepare import prepare file. Oh yeah, sounds good. And it returns none, which is good. Okay, file prepare. So what should I do with this file name? So in Python, the open function is here to help. Open file name. With this, I'm going to get what we call a file handler. So it's not the content of the file. It's just a pointer, a lightweight pointer to the file. And you can execute operations on this pointer, and it's going to be influencing how the processing of the file is going to go. Well, in plain English, what does it mean? It means that if I could very well open a file that's 2 GB and it would not make my laptop sweat, because it's not going to open a 2 GB file. It's just going to tell the operating system, okay, I'm opening it. This is it. And in Python, you got two ways of doing it. You could either store your handler like this and do stuff, and then in the end do handler.close. But that's a bit annoying because you should never forget to close your handles. And you might, even if you don't forget, like throwing an exception, an unquote exception might break your code, and the handle.close would never get executed. So a safer way of doing it would be with open file name as let's say f. I'm not very much in favor of using short like one letter variables, but for temporary stuff it's not really relevant. Then if I do something like f.read lines, what would I get? Good question. What would I get if I do f.read lines? Well, two ways of doing it. I could store them here, lines equal, and then print lines. Let's try this. So here you can see that PyTest has been capturing the std out, so the print is being executed, and it's being captured by PyTest. And so it told me, yeah, so I read your file and it contained Mary, Patricia, and Linda. One question that I'm asking myself is, how are these names? So is this just one super long line, or is there like carriage returns? So if I do this, oh, it's one big line actually. Okay, so even if I split my, I should be careful of structuring my test file the same way the final file is going to look like. So here, if I do read lines, it's going to just generate like put everything in an array. But since there is only one big line, the array will contain only one item, which will be the whole first line. So read lines is maybe not the best choice I have. So I would probably go for content equals f.read. So be careful, this reads the whole file at once. So 46K, you can afford it. If the file is very big, it might take a while to be read. So content, and if I print the content, what do I get? So you see here, I got an array, a list containing just the text, and it was only one element in my list. So here I'm running it again. Okay, so at least I got rid of this useless list, but I just have my text here. Okay, that's great. Now probably I should split it. Like you see, it's one line, but the separator between each is the comma. So if I unordered names is content, come on. If I split over the comma, now, and then I print unordered names. Looks better. So you see here I'm having this, I'm back with a list, but the list contains one name at a time. So it's not the same thing as having one string separated by comma. Here the commas are now part of the list in the Python list. So it's the markup that Python used to show that there is a difference between this item and this item. It's no longer embedded in the string itself. So here it's good, but I still have those annoying double quotes here. So I might as well filter this out. So the laziest approach for this is just replacing every single occurrence of a double quote by a null, zero length string. So cleaned names is. So here I'm going to use a list comprehension. So it's name dot replace double quote and then empty string for name in unordered names. So what does a list comprehension do? It's just behind the scenes. It's the equivalent of for name in names and then acc.append temp. So every time you got a construction which looks suspiciously like this one, you can just replace it by, again, a neat one-liner like this one. So here, if I print my clean names, oh, fantastic. Only names remain. Yeah, because obviously if I was trying to sort, well, it would have still maybe worked, but I don't know the position of this character in the ASCII table, so it might completely have influenced the sorting order and probably would have broken it. So I prefer that we get rid of these as soon as possible. So now we're getting closer to the final result. We have a list containing only the names, which is good. So now what? Now I need to sort it. So clean names contains all the names which are cleaned, but still not ordered. They are still unordered cleaned names. So I might also say unordered clean names. And now what should I return? So naively, if you're just using tab completion, you would notice that there is a sort function on list in Python lists. And then if I do this, I'm going to get an error about none, like none being returned, but I do return something. I took the time to split and to replace and so on, and then it still bothers me with this nonsense. Why that? It's because sort doesn't return anything. Here I'm calling a function, a method actually. I'm calling a method on a list, but this specific function does not return a sorted version of the original list. It just sorts what we call in place. So it's not creating anything new. It's just sorting it. So an order named has been sorted, but the execution of the sort method returns none, and this is what I'm returning. So either I do return, so here like this, and then I return unordered names, which is fine, but it looks a bit it's unordered clean names. So it's fine, but it's a bit ugly, because then return unordered clean names. Why would I do such a thing? It's like, oh yeah, because of my sort. So it, in terms of semantics, it's not really good. So another way of doing it, which uses a bit more memory because it's duplicating the data, I get unordered clean names, which is unordered, and then I'm calling the sorted function. Sorted sorts and returns a copy of the original input, but sorted. So now if I do this, yes, it prepares the file. Great. So I think we are almost ready to combine everything into one final module. Let's do this now. So there's not much more that we can do with testing, because now we would just be testing the final function. So we have made the decomposition, we have checked that the Colin would return 53, but now we need to write actual code that's going to get executed. So here it's like def exercise 22. Yeah, of course. Let's call it solution.py. So here the file name is p022 names.txt. And so which function should I use? First I need to get my file prepare function. So from file prepare import prepare file. Clever. Sorted names is there. Oh yeah, we are still missing the for name in sorted names. From alpha value we need to get the alpha value. So from alpha value import alpha value function. So from the alpha value module import alpha value function. Brilliant, great. So how did they call it? Yeah, the alpha value. Yeah, so let's call it value for to avoid confusion. Value is alpha value of name. So now I got the 53, but the ordering, how do I do this? So in Python there is also, I could use a counter and increment the counter every time I'm like going for one round of the for loop, or I could use the enumerate function that does exactly the same. So it just returns the index alongside with the value every time. So it's a generator that's reading the input one line, well, one item by one item, and returns the item alongside with an index. But the thing is, enumerate, like every good thing in computing starts with 0. So it would be the first, I would probably get my first input wrong because enumerate starts at 0. I'm making a demonstration. So I could afford to have a bigger window here. Okay, so if I have, let's say, groceries, apples, bananas, pineapples. Yeah. Problem solved. Okay, and now if I want to see enumerate of groceries, yeah, it's going to return an enumerator, of course. So so the enumerator, as I said, it's going to return just one object, an enumerate object, and then every time it's being called in the for loop, it's going to return 2 items. The first item would be the index and the second would be the value. If I want to materialize this iterator, this enumerator at once, I can just call list on it. So this is what returns enumerate, and you see that apples start with 0 and then 1 then 2. But like the position is not 0, the position is 1. So there's a nice added keyword argument for enumerate, which is the start point. Of course, what? Yes, it's an argument of enumerate, not list. And here we see that that's fine because the index now has moved from 0 to 1, which is very suitable for our problem here. So let's say start equals 1, and then value is this, score is index times value. And so we could store everything in one big accumulator. 5,000 items in the list is not a big deal either. So we could do this, or we could just use a bare counter. So total score equals 0 to begin with, and then total score plus equals score. Print total score is total score. So this is going to print probably the final result if I'm right. So let's give it a try. Python solution.py. Yes, so of course I've created my function, but I'm never calling it. So you might have seen that people use if main is name and so on and so on. Well, we are going to use it now. Exercise 22. Oh. So it would be 871,198,282. Is this the solution? Yes! Pride, my pride is huge. Okay, I don't think there is a lot more to improve here. Well, there's always room for improvement, but I think it's pretty decent the way it is. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching this show and that you have learned a few interesting stuff. See you next time.